Hi, it's Juliet. Thanks. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to be demonstrating some cute flower and sun smiley beads for Beads of Courage. This is for the 2022 Arizona Society of Glass Bead Makers Fall Challenge. Hope you enjoy it and make lots of beads for the kids. Okay, so I'll show you some of the beads we're going to make. They're built on a lentil base, so you'll need some sort of a lentil press. You can use something like the Susie's press. I also have this other lentil press that I got really long time ago. If you don't have a lentil press, you can use a comparable shape, or you can even make a bead and mash it flat and use it. So for these beads, we're going to need to use a variety of colors. Any kind of color combination will work. You're going to want some commercial width stringers for the flower petals or the points of the sun. Some regular thin pulled stringers. Again, any color combination you'll want. Anything will work. Anything you've got on hand. I'm going to use some fine black stringers for some of the smiley faces. And I'm also going to show you how to apply smiley murrini. I'll have another video that actually shows you how to pull the smiley murrini. If you spend the time to pull the murrini and cut it into chips, it goes a lot faster than doing the stringer work. In terms of tools, other than the press, you'll need your standard things like a pair of tungsten tweezers for picking up the murrini. You'll probably want some sort of small tweezers. It could be useful to have a small poker or something to move the glass a bit. But it really doesn't require a whole lot. I guess your basic lampworking tools are sufficient. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let's light the torch and get started. I've got the propane lit first, then I turn on the oxygen and I make sure I store my lighter away from flying glass because those little things can explode and become dangerous. So Beads of Courage likes to use a larger size mandrel, I think because it's easier for the kids to string it, but that's not a hard requirement. I'm going to be using a Susie press, and it likes the smaller size mandrels, so I'm going to just go with that. That's okay for Beads of Courage. They'll take any size mandrel. I'm going to start by winding on a base bead of green opaque. This happens to be number 216. But any color will work. And I'm going to put some flower petals on it. I'm probably going to do a two-tone flower petal, a flat one that's not raised, and then I will apply the murrini smiley in the center. So this is one variation. So I'm just going to wind on my base bead here. And you want to put the footprint down the width of the press if you're going to be using a press. Again, you don't need to. You can also just use mashers. I like the domed center of the press because it's easier to flame polish and have the flame kind of kiss over the surface. If it's a flat surface, it's a little tougher to get the heat into the middle. But again, if you don't have a lentil press, you can use any other kind of press or shape or just a pair of mashers. For a lentil press, you want approximately a football shape. And then when you press it, it will become a circle. We're going to just press it once with the base glass. We're not going to be going back into the press multiple times. We're going to be adding the decorations on the top. So we only really need to press it the once. So I want to completely fill the cavity. Sometimes if you're adding more decorations, you're going to be pressing it multiple times. You want to leave a little bit of extra room so that by the time you build up enough glass and get to the final press, it's just the right size. But for this, we're not going to worry about that. Okay, let me get these edges melted in a bit. I think I've got about the right amount of glass now. I just need to have it soft and flowing so when I go into the press, it'll take on a nice shape. Alright, so the bead is glowing. I'm going to let it cool a bit. I am rotating it as I'm cooling it. And sometimes I touch it down and then touch it on the other side, and that just gives it a little bit of a little bit of chill on the surface, and then I can press it down. And there we go. Okay. Give it a bit of heat, get the chill marks out. And I like to do a little extra heat, just pointing the edge towards where the mandrel goes in. That helps improve the quality of the little bead pucker there. And it makes it a nicer bead hole. Okay, so I'm going to just put a multi-layered petal, probably 5 or 6 petal flower. I'll do 6 because it's easy to get the geometry right. So it's a green-based bead, and I'm going to start with the red flowers. So I'm basically going to put red dots. So I'm going to go at the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock, and then I'm going to fit 2 in between. So that would be like 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So right now these are just fairly large circles. They are not touching one another. And I'm going to kind of heat them and melt them in. I'm going to give them a little bit of a mash. As I'm mashing, I can kind of scooch them in and out. I can also evaluate if I got the size okay, if I need to add a little bit of glass. So these two on the left seem to be a bit smaller. So I'm going to just add a touch more glass to each of these. And that one there is a little bit small too. So I add just a little bit more glass. I'm using just a little flat, dental paddle thing. It's just a nice little tool. It's small, and I like the way you can kind of get in and manipulate the flower petals. So I'm melting these down. They're not completely flush yet, but they're getting close. A little bit of heat in the back side as well. And now I'm going to add a second layer. Before I do that, I want to touch the center, the portion of these flower dots towards the center, and get that a little bit smoother. So then when I add my second color on, which I'm going to go with the yellow, I think the green, red, and yellow will be dramatic and happy. I'll be able to kind of drag those inner ones closer to the center a little bit more easily. So I'm going to put a second dot on top of the first dot, but I'm going to kind of offset a little bit more towards the middle of the flower. And these might touch a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to be poking it in the middle. So I'm going to put all 6 in here. And I can flatten that out a little bit as well. And if you need to, you can take a pokey tool and drag those dots towards the center, heat them up and drag them a bit. Okay, that's good. Now I want to get a bit of heat in there and get that to smooth out a bit. At this point, I can add a little grooves in the center of the flower, put a little bit of detail on it. This one here, I'm going to be adding a murrini to the center. So it's a little bit built up in the center, and that's okay. I'll just get that warm, and I'll kind of work my murrini down into it. And I'll let that melt in and absorb a little bit. I'll put a bit of heat in the back side. And over here on the right, I have my little, hair warmer thing. And I've got this brass plate resting on it, and I have some murrini sticking out on the brass plate, and that heats them up, and it makes it much easier to put them on the bead without them cracking. This thing heats it up to about 800 degrees, so it's pretty toasty. All right, so I'm going to grab one of the white smiley murrinis, and I want to pick it up and think about which way the face is oriented. And I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to start to heat it in the back of the flame. And it's behind the flower. I'm also heating the center of that flower because I want it to be soft, and I'm going to kind of push this murrini down into it. So I'm going to go to the side here so you can see it, hopefully. And I'm going to push that down in it. And I'm going to take my little tool and push it as well. Now the thing here is I'm heating around the edge, and I'm trying not to heat the top face of the murrini. I'm touching the tool to the top face, which cools it, but I'm trying to get the base bead and around the edges of the murrini heated up. And that'll allow me to kind of push it down. You can sort of see how the edges are compressing a little bit, but I'm keeping the smiley up at the top. And the tool here is actually cooling the top, because the only part I'm touching is the face where the smiley is. You can probably see the water bubbling a little bit on my tool. I cool it off in my water in between. And I'm pushing it down in there, and that preserves the details of the smile. It gets it down a little bit lower. And it doesn't spread it out too much and distort the face. So that's why I tend to do it that way. Okay, now I can heat it up. You see there's very little bit of a gap there anymore now, so I can kind of heat it up and let it melt in so it's nice and flush. I do want to put a heart on the back side of the flower as well, because this is for Beads of Courage and we're giving them love. So I will pick up a coordinating color, so I'll just use the red. And I'm going to heat the back, and I'll show you how to do a really simple heart. So I'm going to put down 2 dots that just barely touch between them. And the second one, when I pull it off, I'm going to let my stringer, my commercial stringer, pull out a little bit of a point. And I'm going to use that point as a rake, as a tool. So I'm going to heat these up, let them melt in a bit, be warm. And I want to get the side that I'm going to drag this, I'm going to rake it down using my tool. I want it to be warm where it's going. So I'm going to grab in the middle here, and I'm going to pull it down, and I just put a little curl on the end, and then I'm going to snap that off. I may need to blow on it a bit. And that makes a cute little heart on the back side with a little curly Q on the end. I like those kind of hearts. And so there we have it. We've got a simple lentil bead with a 2-color flower and a happy smiley in the middle and a heart on the back side. So into the kiln it goes. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another bead, and I'm going to have a larger center, and this time I'm going to do some stringer work and make the smiley out of the stringer work instead of using the murrini. Orange, I think that's orange, yes. And we'll go with some orange flower petals. So what I'm going to do is touch down a circle on the outer edge and then kind of drag it to the middle. And I'm going to put, 5 or 6 petals around the edge. And then after that I will put a dot in the middle, and then I'll do a little stringer work with a smiley face. So I'm going to touch down and drag to the middle and pull up. There's 1 petal. I'll do another one. 2. I like using the commercial stringers for this. It's easy, it's fast. You can also pull stringers about, I guess that's about 3 millimeters is a commercial size. Now you see there I got a little bit of a pile up of glass there. You can take that and use a tool to help press it down if it starts to build up a bit much. So I could press that down. If it gets to be way too much, I can also take a pair of tweezers, heat it up and pull a little bit off and get rid of it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. Oops, wrong side of the rod. Let me put a 5th one on. So heat up the end. This is actually good practice because you're touching down, you're dragging to the right and down and up and to the left. So you're pulling in all directions, and I know I kind of have a favorite way to do it, but it's good practice to make petals in all directions. So, okay, so now I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to use my tweezers and just kind of pull all that glass to the middle, sort of gather it up a bit and heat it, and then I'm going to kind of pull it straight up and kind of pull it off and then put it in my water bowl. I don't know if you can see that from the edge here. I'll try to pull it up above here. I'm kind of pulling it out that way and then just flame cutting it. Flame cut it a little bit too high there, but flame cutting it off. That gets rid of some of the bulk. And once you've got some of the bulk reduced, then you can kind of flatten that out. You could also use like a striped cane or something fancy, with different colors in it if you want. I'm just using plain commercial stringer for this one. Pretty much anything will go. All right, now I've pushed the outer edge of the flower just to round them up a little bit and kind of scooch them and make them look a little bit more even. So you can kind of fritter with it if you want. And then I'm flattening the center. Now I'm going to take a contrasting color, and I'll take this turquoise blue, and I'm going to put a larger dot in the middle, and then I'm going to flatten it. And that is going to be the place where I'm going to add my happy flower face. So I'm heating up a gather on the end. This is a commercial stringer. I'm going to touch it down, pull it up, flame cut it, and then I'm going to take a tool, and I want to flatten that out and make it a little bit larger. The larger it is, the bigger space you have to do your stringer work in, and the easier it is. If these get really small, it's hard to do the really tiny stringer work. And now I'm going to take a thin, I'll use black stringer, but again, any color will work. I'm going to turn my flame down. I'm going to find the sweet spot in my flame, and I'm going to start with the smile and then put the two eyes on. So I'm going to take it and go near the edge and just make a happy smile. Flame cut that. You might want to touch it down. Okay, and I like to do the mouth or the smile first because then you can tell where to put the eyes. It's easier to get two dots placed than a whole circle. So if you do it in the other order, it's just easier to get the eyes placed afterwards. At least I've found that. So we'll put those two eyes down. We're going to flatten them down and melt them in. You have to make sure that they're not going to pop off or anything. So you do need to get some heat in it. All right, my flame is low. I'm going to turn it back up and get some heat in the back of the bead. Okay, so there's my flower. If you wanted to decorate the flower further, you could put like some happy dots on it or something. So I'll do that. I'm going to take this white stringer here, and I'll just put some dots on the tip of every petal. So you can kind of go to town. You could build up different color stacked dots and rake them to the middle if you want. You could put, other decorations like this. You could put stripes down the middle of the flower petals. I mean, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. Lots of ideas in it. And I'm sure you all will come out with some really cute, fun, creative ideas. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make a variation. And this is going to be a sun bead. And so it's very similar to the flower, except when we apply the petals, we're going to kind of go to the edge and make a little bit of a 3D, which will be kind of the flamey part of the sun on the outer edge. Okay, so now we're going to build up the sun bead. So you can see from these samples here that I've got, the bead hole goes through, and there's either 3 or 4 petals on either side of it. And so it starts with the yellow in the middle, and then we're going to add like 3 or 4 or 5 orange dots. I'll start with 4. It's a little easier to fit in. 5 can be a little challenging on a small bead. And then we're going to add yellow on top of them. And I can put them right on the sharp edge of the lentil press, and they're going to kind of drag both the front and the back of the bead. And so we'll be doing stacked dots. So you have the yellow core, then we'll begin to add orange dots and then red on top of that. And then we can kind of rake it to the middle, and that's like the little, flamey, pokey-atty things on the sun. I don't know what you call those, but I like to start along the mandrel because that's tougher to get in there. It's easier to fill in the spots away from the mandrel. And when I touch this down, I don't want to actually touch it on the mandrel. I am just going right up to the edge. I am pulling it up, and then I'm flame cutting it. And I'm heating it from both sides so it's very well adhered. Now this other side can be a little trickier to get in there. Just geometrically getting to the far side can be a little tougher. You do it on both sides. Sometimes that dot ends up being a little smaller, and then I have to add a bit more glass to get it to match. It's okay to do it in a couple of steps like that. It's a little more controlled. All right, so I've got one on either side, and I'm going to fit 2 more in between. So I'll do one side here, pull it up, and flame cut it. You can see when I touch it down, it's going around both sides of the bead. Do that on that side, give it a bit of heat. Now I'm going to go to the other side. So I'm kind of alternating sides to keep the heat in my bead a little bit more even. Okay, so now what I want to do is add glass where I need it to try to get the sizes a little bit more uniform. and get them a little bit bigger. So just a little bit more glass there to rake towards the center. And again, the ones near the mandrel, if you heat pointing kind of the tip of the mandrel towards the flame, they'll naturally kind of pull in a little bit closer to the mandrel and kind of fill that gap where your mandrel is going. Okay, and that's pretty good. And so now I'm going to take the red. You could take a full-size rod, or if you have a commercial stringer or a hand-pulled stringer, you can use that. We don't need quite as much red over here. I'll just put a dot on each of these. I'm thinking about it, I'll alternate sides just to kind of keep the heat a little bit more balanced. I want to get the red dot that's on top of the orange dot that's attached to the yellow lentil fully melted in. So you can see how this guy here has still got a dot on it with a seam. And those guys too. These ones are nice and melted in. That's what I'm going for, the nice melted in. That way it's strong, it's less likely to break off for the kids. We're going to do a little bit of raking in a minute, and that will accentuate the look of those, you know, those points for the sun. So that'll help make it look more sunnish. Okay, so I want that to cool a little bit. Now the idea here is I'm going to heat right here in the middle, in the yellow, where the yellow and the orange join, and then I'm going to kind of drag it in a little bit. I'm only going to worry about doing it on one side, and that would be the front side where the face is. The other side we'll just put a heart on it. So I'm going to heat a little bit in that gap right between there, and then I'm going to kind of pull it, let's see, pull right from the orange a little bit towards the center. There we go. You see how that just pulls it out a little bit and just kind of accentuates it. And then I'm going to go to an opposite side away from where I just heated it, because I don't want my core to get too soft. So there we go. I just pulled that one in. I'm going to go to another one that's already cool, add my heat, and drag that in a bit. And then work my way around until I have all of them pulled towards the center. We'll go over here next. And pull it in and go. Someplace else cool, add the heat and pull it in. You may need to, depending on how quickly you're going, give it a minute to cool in between. You don't want it to get, totally mushy and runny, because then you'll distort your lentil shape. So at this point, you could, if you had murrini with the same color as your base bead, you could put a smiley right in the middle. Or, like I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw it on with a stringer. So I want to get my base a little bit warm. I've got a pre-pulled intense black stringer. And I'm going to start by putting my smile in it. I'm going to turn my flame down a little bit. I want it to be hot so that this will go in and stick. All right, so I'm going to just touch the end and put my smiley on first. Make sure those ends stay stuck down and don't peel back off on you. I'll scooch it a little bit too. If you need to push it down a little bit, if you use a round tool like this, you can help reshape it a little bit. Okay, so after I got the smile down, I'm going to add my two eyes. 1, 2. I'm going to melt those down a little bit. You can kind of scooch it as you need. And for this one, I think I'm going to put some little cute pink cheeks on it. So I've got a little bit of a peachy pink color stringer, and I'll just put some little smiley cheeks right there on the end of my smile, and that looks cute and happy. So sunny, happy sun for the kids. A little bit of insurance heat, especially around the edge of the mandrel. And it is one happy smiley sun ready to go in the kiln. All sorts of things you can do, lots of variations. You can have rainbow colored petals, solid colored petals, ones that are layered with multiple colors. You can have solid backgrounds, opaque or transparent. You could even do striped backgrounds below the flower. There's just so many variations. You can pull little points on the end and rake them in to make suns as well. So just turn your creativity up and go to town. Use lots of bright, fun, happy colors. The kids are gonna love them. And thank you for supporting Beads of Courage. You can decorate the back side too. You can put hearts, dots, you can put frets, stringer work, anything you want. Add a little love for the kids. So here are all the fun, happy, smiley murrini cut and ready to go on the beads. So click on the link and it'll take you to a video that shows you how to use them in the flower and sun beads for Beads of Courage. Thank you.